Trade season. It's so much fun. Everybody gets along and everybody agrees on everything that we say on this show. Psychos and sickos unite for an on-the-move edition of the PHNX Suns Show, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app, use code PHNX365, deposit 10, place a bet for 5, get $200 in bonus bets. We are just over a week away from the NBA trade deadline, and it is the perfect time to continue trade talk here on PHNX Suns. It's exactly what we are going to do today. We'll be talking about 4 potential trade pieces the Suns might part with, what you could get back for them, why the Suns should or should not move them. So make sure you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button as well. Help us get to 50,000 subscribers here before the Super Bowl. It'd be a big help if you hit that subscribe button. Plus, it's absolutely free. I'm Eric, that's Gil. We got Espo, Steven, and the Freckled Mamba, the whole squad here for a Monday following a Suns loss to the Heat, but it's okay. Everybody's happy when we talk trades, right, fellas?
Except the guys we're proposing to trade. I'm guessing they wouldn't be too happy to hear the names.
Ain't nothing personal, fellas.
I hope not.
It's nothing.
Gil, you're telling me how personal it is.
So yeah, I was like, man, get this guy out of here. Can't stand talking about this guy.
I tried to trade him to CHGO. They were like, nah, we can't give up Peck. So
Know that?
How you doing, Steven?
I'm chilling.
Steven's like, please trade me to CHGO.
That's not what I said.
Well,
Untouchable. Untouchable.
before we get into trades, let's just briefly debrief from last night's game. Steven, I'll start with you. Obviously, we got to talk to you at the end of the show, but you were there at the arena. You've had some time to think about it. It was a pretty rough loss on some fronts and maybe an excusable one on the other. How are you feeling after last night?
I mean, this is the team trying to find its way without their best player and then without their second best player. And it looked like what you would assume it would look like against a top 5 defense. I understand people wanting to have seen more, but my question is, like, with just one day to game plan for that particular opponent, this time without 2 of your best players, like, how much more did you expect? Like, a couple more threes could have went down, but that score was what it was before the reserves got in. I know it says it was a 7 or 8 point game. That was not what that game was. That was like a 15 to 16 or 17 point game in terms of margin. So I think I find solace, and I know people hate to hear it, especially in a loss. I find great solace in the Suns holding Miami Heat's offense to the extent that they did. A very subpar field goal percentage, 41.9%, including the garbage time stretch. The Suns I think the Suns finished the game +1 in the 3-point makes margin as well. So, like, those things definitely matter. Now, there's things they can clean up, but even with the second chance opportunities conceded to the Heat and things like that, if you looked at those numbers just as a template and you asked yourself, did the Suns win this game or not? You see their defensive field goal percentage is 41.9. Probably 8.5 times out of 10 this season you say they won that game. This was one of those instances where they didn't.
Do you feel the effort was fully there, though? Because at times, to me, it felt more lethargic than we've seen. Not as crisp or as many rotations defensively. Was that just my eye test, or did you feel that was kind of the way too?
It felt like, for me, the effort part wasn't what it typically is on the rebounding part. Like, this is a team when they're at their best, guys are stingy for rebounds. Like, you see Suns guys fighting for rebounds almost. Jordan Goodwin's fighting with Oso Ighodaro and Mark Williams on a near possession basis to end a defensive possession, and then they get out in the transition after that. So as far as that part goes, I would say yes, particularly for rebounds in pockets. And then on the offensive side, it definitely 100%, not because of being lethargic, but it felt like they were thinking a whole lot more, which is naturally going to slow down your reaction time, and everything is going to be a step or two behind what it typically is.
That's a tough thing. A lot of times you think the game instead of playing the game.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of, I guess, indicative of how the trends and how the game went in the sense of just kind of looking back and how it went. It felt like the Suns were responding a lot rather than being the aggressors. And I understand that, like you mentioned, having one day to prepare for a tough Heat team, regardless of who they did or did not have available. And the Heat being on a second of a back-to-back, they were at least in some type of rhythm, some type of flow, especially considering the night before they scored 147 points. So regardless of what happened with them getting here late and not getting as much sleep or sleeping later than they normally would have, I just think the Heat made their mark by hitting first, and the Suns hit back. The Heat hit again, the Suns hit back one more time, but then when the Heat delivered that final punch, the Suns didn't really have anything. So I think it's really important now to look back at that and learn from that. I think they'll play the game more than they thought it yesterday, and they'll also be ready to be the aggressor because you're not in desperation mode yet, but tomorrow is an opportunity that you want to take advantage of.
I think the big difference between Miami working without some of their top end pieces and the Suns working without theirs is system. And this is not an indictment against Jordan Knott, but the system Miami is running this season is tailor-made specific for the guys that they brought into their roster. And Spoelstra's kind of emphasized that their exit from the playoffs was against Jordan Knott's team last season in Cleveland in the first round is what made them shift drastically to trying something different outside the box. They have a bunch of guys that can go just get a paint touch. That means that if Tyler Hero's available, he adds to that. If he's not available, Davion Mitchell, if he's not available, you still have guys that can do that. Kasparis Akusionis, someone that can do that a ton. We saw that a lot last night. Thank you. We saw him do that a lot last night. Bam can do it. They have a ton of guys that can do that. Obviously, Jaime Jaquez Jr. as well. That's just the difference. When you have an offense that can be ran and you can still get to your triggers regardless of who's in the rotation, it makes you a little bit harder to defend versus it being from one specific faction of your roster. That's kind of the little bit of a situation that the Suns are in right now.
Drew D. Bentley in the chat says, Book makes everyone so calm and confident. No one had that last night. Obviously, this is a big testament to who Devin Booker is and what he brings. Drew also says earlier that Legs, our guy Legs, gave some love to Book picking all-star reserves. Is it realistic to think he'll get picked? Before we hit a first break here, I just want to know gut check for all of you now that we probably won't see Book play again before all-star picks and reserves are announced. Do we think that he will end up on the team?
I lean yes. I think we just talked about the national attention and love this team has gotten. It's been one of the better stories, I think, more among basketball circles, and the coaches who are voting for this recognize what Devin Booker means to this team. So I think he'll get it.
Yeah, I think yes, and it may be in part because they think, well, if he's injured, we still may get the other guy in, and he'll still get the nod and the respect. But yeah, I think he sneaks in as probably that last guy to make it.
Yeah, I think he gets voted in just off of the strength of the coaches, the valuing of the shoulder that the brunt he's shouldered for the Suns this season offensively, and for them to be operating this well. You can't do that unless your best player is being close to, if not the best version of himself. And I think he'll get that because of it.
Yeah, it's been funny this all-star cycle. You feel like this is the year where, oh man, maybe Book doesn't get it. Maybe he doesn't get the love. I feel like I've seen him more consistently picked as an all-star reserve than either I expected or that we saw the last couple of years. It almost feels like now he's kind of lodged in like that group of guys. It's like, well, yeah, of course they're going to be there, right? And obviously the team playing well and not having another guy like Jalen Green this season to really be in that conversation. I know there was a time there where maybe it was Dillon Brooks. That's looking extremely unlikely at this point. It's probably going to end up being Book. I feel pretty confident that he'll get voted in. If he doesn't, I'd be pretty surprised, honestly, at this point.
I'd be upset.
Upset and surprised. Oh, I'd be upset. Oh, I'd be upset for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if the Suns don't get an all-star nod, then what is all-star about? I mean, most surprising team in the league. You're winning in a way that you shouldn't. You've been right in the playoff picture. Your team deserves an all-star. Kara doesn't think Book will make it, though. She says, I don't think so, and that's just me being honest.
That's because she don't trust other people, which I completely understand, considering how hard it's been for him to even make it to begin with in years past, where he was even more deserving, it seems like, than he is this season. So
Yeah, been hurt
definitely
before. Been hurt before. It's like, man, I don't want to get your hopes up to be let down again by him not.
understood for
I
sure.
get that.
I think he's going to get it. But we'll see. I believe in the coaches. I don't believe in everybody else. But I do believe in the coaches to make sure that Book gets that nod. But we'll have to wait and see. The rising stars, I believe, will be drafted tonight. Including guys who have appeared in the G League. So maybe, just maybe, Rashir, come on down. All-Star Weekend.
I have a feeling the Suns will have somebody that's in that.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's going to be Oso, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest. Second-year guy has had a huge impact on this team. Didn't get the call last year. I think he gets the call for that this year.
Well, if that does happen, you know where to find it at PHNX_Suns. We'll let you know. But look, we've kicked the can down the road long enough. It's time to have some uncomfortable conversations about, yes, Royce O'Neale, Grayson Allen, pieces we've always talked about in trade talks. But what about a couple of other guys as well that maybe we haven't? We'll get into it on the other side of our first break. Everybody wants to start a small
Steven, are you
business.
able to push the
Turn
mic
it
a
into
little
a
bit
big
closer to your
business. You're going to need somebody along the way every single step, and of course that is Shopify. Shopify gives you everything that you need to sell online and in person, plus millions of entrepreneurs have already made this leap, from household names to business owners just getting started, including PHNX, and we are powered by Shopify as well. They give you all the tools to easily build your dream store, built from a bunch of beautiful templates that can customize and match your brand. Plus, marketing is built in to create email and social campaigns that reach customers wherever they scroll. And as you grow, Shopify grows with you. We've seen that here at PHNX along the entire way. Shopify's been there with us, handling more orders, expanding to new markets, and doing it all from the same dashboard. So in 2026, stop waiting, start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. Go to shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Hear your first cha-ching this new year with Shopify by your side.
Ching.
Look, sometimes you're going to have to call a lawyer because you've been in an accident or somebody in your family has been seriously injured, and you got to do your research because you can't just go with somebody that's on the side of a bus and go, oh, I saw it and that's good enough. No, you got to do your research, and where that research will likely lead you is to our friends with the husband and wife law team. Mark and Alexis Breyer are from Arizona. They love to help people right here in their neighborhood, and their lawyers at the husband and wife law team are part of the 1% that are certified by the Arizona Board for Wrongful Death and Serious Injury Law. Plus, they are prepared to go to trial if necessary, and they are committed to getting you the result that helps you more than it helps their bottom line. So if you've had a serious injury, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841, or visit their website in the link in our show notes and tell them PHNX sent you.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're listening on audio. Not only are you getting audio exclusive episodes, but also hit that 5-star review button as well. Really excited to get in this conversation, not because we want the Suns to trade any of these guys. That is a disclaimer that we will always share as we approach the trade deadline. I think we've all been pretty steadfast in saying that we would totally understand if the Suns didn't make any significant moves, but it does feel like the tide has shifted a little bit with some of the recent struggles the Suns have suffered over the last few weeks. As we approach next Thursday's trade deadline, what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 players that we think are the most likely or most possible to be traded. Those players do not include Devin Booker, Dillon Brooks, Colin Gillespie, Mark Williams, Oso Ighodaro. Those guys, not in on this conversation. We're also not going to talk about 2 guys that we feel like it would be not obvious, but understandable if they were moved. That's Nick Richards, Nigel Hayes-Davis as either salary dumping, trying to get second-round picks, or as pieces in another trade, with the 4 guys we are going to talk about. Let's start with Royce O'Neale and Grayson Allen, and then we'll talk about Ryan Dunn and Jalen Green. So let's start with Royce. Just a brief breakdown on what Royce has done so far this year for the Suns. Pretty decent averages for him. 10.3 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. He's played in every single outing, 4.6 games played, shooting 50% from 2, which is kind of hilarious if you watch our watch-alongs whenever he takes a layup, it's either the most magical thing of all time or the worst. 40.8% from deep, 69.6% from the free throw line. He's currently on a 3-year contract as far as this year, next 2 years after that for $32 million, averages out to just over $10 million per year. When I say the Phoenix Suns are trading Royce O'Neale, what do you guys expect back generally?
A better fit. We talked a lot about the need for more size in the front court and a guy who can do some different things. And Royce has been playing outside of himself as far as size goes this year, but I think that it's not necessarily an upgrade in that it's a better player. It could be an even player, but an even player that has more size. You lose some shooting probably because Royce, I mean, been around the top 10 in threes made all year at a pretty impressive clip. But the first thing that comes to mind is, yeah, you do this deal because you upgrade and get more size if you get rid of or part ways with Royce O'Neale.
Yeah, I think you're looking at a fringe starter or top of the bench kind of guy that, to your point, Gil, would make more sense with the roster in terms of roster balance. But you're not getting a starter for him. I know he's been starting, but you're not getting some top end starter talent if you're trading Royce O'Neale.
Yeah, for me, I mean, for all of the trade options that the Suns have, I'm looking at size for one, for rebounding purposes, but also for front court versatility purposes. Point of attack defense, having guys that you're comfortable with potentially closing for your team and being able to have guys that you can plug and play in different lineups like that. That's probably the two biggest things that I'm looking for. So kind of in alignment with what you guys are speaking to, but just a little more detail on it.
That was a loud ding. That was a hearty
Yeah,
ding.
that was about damn time.
Getting some frustration out on
I
that
hear
bad
you.
boy.
Got you. Understood.
And Royce has been this guy that for his contract, which, isn't terrible, but on the other side of 30, having a couple more years left, maybe there is some concern that we can dive into here in a second. But he's always been somebody who's been on the trade radar of Suns fans. The contract makes sense. He's a good enough player for other teams to be interested, especially contending teams, with all the great things that he brings here in Phoenix. Let's start with concerns maybe on keeping Royce O'Neale. Why maybe would the Phoenix Suns shop him around and see if they can get a quote-unquote better fit despite him having an objectively good season this year?
I mean, I think there's really only one reason for me, and it comes down to 2 more years on that contract. We've already seen him slow down a little bit on the defensive end. Do you believe he can keep the kind of play and impact he's had up that he's doing now for the next 2 seasons after this? My answer is probably no. So you've got to consider, okay, is now the best time to try to get some value out of it? I lean to the maybe not right now, but I think that's why you'd consider it for sure.
The other thing I think too is, the consistency, right? We've had this conversation in a lot of pre-games. Which version are we going to get? There's the good Royce and there's the not as good Royce. And, I think he would still be in the top 10 in threes made if he didn't miss all of his 3-point attempts last night, which happens. But I think would you rather have a guy who's capable of, going 5 of 12 one night and 0 of 7 the next, or a guy who's just going to get you 2 or 3 every single night, regardless of that? So thinking about the consistency, the I guess his value is at its highest that it probably will be during the life of this contract, save for maybe the off season. But that's probably the two things that's like, man, you might want to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah. The third rung I forgot to mention in it. Size, versatility, and rim pressure. Those are the 3 weaknesses for the team. Bringing in a guy that can bring depths of that Royce either can't or hasn't shown to do this season so far, I think will help elevate this team a lot. Look at all the best teams. Boston in recent years, the Thunder even more so recently, even the Pacers. Their top 8 or 9 are all guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. All 3 of those things. Miles Turner, you don't really think about it. How many times did he poster somebody after they ran him off the 3-point line in the playoffs last season? That's rim pressure from your center. The Suns don't really have that right now. Oso can do it, but no one's running him off the 3-point line or even in mid-range right now. So they need guys that can just simply add to what it is that they are looking to get towards. And I think them being able to do that, Royce could help them with that. What I fear for Royce with the Suns is that come playoff time, his lack of point of attack impact on the basketball starts to feel more of a burden than it is something that he helps add value for them with. And at that point, is his 3-point shot falling? Because if it's not, how is he adding that value that you need to win against a team like maybe Houston or OKC in the playoffs, or even a team like Minnesota on a lesser extent. So that's kind of what I look forward if I'm thinking ahead.
And I think this is tough. And we have a willingness to trade meter on the bottom here. We all sent out of 5 Suns or 5 stars what we would be willing to send. And Royce is on the higher end. He's nearly on 4 stars or 4 Suns there. I guess the Sun is technically a star.
It is.
It's tough because I think Royce has just been so fantastic for this team this year. Clutch moments as a good leader, a great vibes guy. You know, as somebody who wasn't pegged to be a starter, but has come in and played starter minutes for a team that, you know, is in playoff contention in the West, I would be worried about moving on from him. And I said this a couple of times the last few weeks, because it just feels like in these big moments, he does find a way to step up. The thing that you said, Gil, that I can't get out of the back of my head, and I was feeling this way when Royce was playing really well at the start of the year, was striking while the iron is hot. Because Royce really has been there at some of the best moments, but sometimes that makes you forget some of the moments that he wasn't there. And if you can maybe replace somebody or replace him with somebody who doesn't have the highest of highs, but is a better, more consistent fit, come playoff time, maybe you have the fear of, oh man, we trade away Royce O'Neale and he goes 8 of 15 from deep in a 2-game stretch or in a game stretch here and win somebody a playoff game. But you also have to think about the other way. Like, what if you get a night like you had it last night against Miami in a clutch win, right? I love what Royce has brought, and that's why I didn't put it a 5 as far as my willingness to trade. But there are some patterns so far in his career that haven't yet really taken form so far this season in a large scale that concern me.
I think we're all hyper focused on this year, and rightfully so. But I think the bigger question that the front office will be asking too is, this year's important, but the long term. Can we get somebody that can do some of what Royce does, but have a longer term impact? Or can we get somebody that can help in the moment now, and it frees up that money over the next 2 off seasons to get somebody if it's an expiring? I think those are the kind of questions that will go into this as a front office too. And with all these guys, is this year is important and has been fun, but what is the path for the next 3 years when you're trying to figure out how to contend with dead money on your cap too?
And the other part is striking while the iron's hot. So Royce has been one of the better 3-point shooters, especially in the catch and shoot. His defense from 2-point range has been really good this season. Is this the best time for you to get return on your investment from him kind of hitting somewhat of a peak while he's under control for you, versus if you wait till the offseason, maybe the second half of the season, post All-Star break isn't as rewarding as this first half and some change has been for him. So you want to make sure you're doing the best for your roster, and trying to recoup picks and things like that for your team going forward, to your point to build.
My last thought on it is that, to both what you guys are saying, there's a contending team out there that probably thinks that for the right price that they are a Royce O'Neale away from maybe even winning it all this year. And so, you know, however many teams you want to think are capable of winning it all, they probably are out there, and they're probably willing to give something in return that could get them closer to hoisting the trophy this year. Whereas if there's a return that you can get that sets you up and makes you firmly in that top tier Western Conference teams for the next 3 or 4 years, or gets you closer to that, you really do have to consider it, because you're playing with house money in a lot of ways this year. And you know, again, it is very important to not completely think about the vibes and everything this year and think about the big picture too.
Yeah, and I'm positive Quinn Snyder would love to have Royce O'Neale with what Atlanta has.
I don't know if they're Royce O'Neale away from a championship.
It's not just the pre-existing relationship though. Like, they have guys that can cover for him defensively, so he can just play to his strengths more. He doesn't have to put the ball on the deck on offense, because they have 7 different guys that can do that too. So he plays even more to his strengths with the Atlanta in a type of ecosystem like that than with the Suns.
Yeah, he's been awesome this year. I've been a really big fan and just really enjoyed the Royce O'Neale experience. All of it. I've enjoyed it. Elko with a good point says Rasheer is Royce's replacement. If you make a move for somebody else or for picks and you say, okay, we open up a spot for Rasheer, I would love to see what Rasheer does in more minutes. Obviously, it feels like his rotation spot is not something that has solidified yet at a position that kind of needs a guy like Sheer. So if that opens it up, plus you fill another role, I'd be very interested in that. Sean says only real benefit to trading him is financially, in my opinion. Unless we get like a good stretch 4, I don't think it's worth it. The thing with the financial stuff, and I get it, he has 2 more years afterwards, like $10 million a year. I know it sounds a lot because it is like a lot. It's not a crazy contract. And shooting is something that even with the highs and lows, Royce has always been able to do in this latter part of his career. So I do think that he could be a valuable piece, maybe not always worth 10 million, but that's not like a record-breaking contract, you know?
No, but it's all going to count, especially when you've got a re-up Mark, if that's the direction you want to go. Colin, like quickly, you're going to wind up stacking more money. You're going to get closer to those aprons. So if that's part of the whole factor, you have to go into this. Even though it's only 10, you're going to owe these guys more money. And if you want flexibility to add to it, you're going to have to figure out how to trim that.
Yeah. And Stacker in the chat says, Steven, you see Suns practice. Why don't they let Fleming play more?
We don't get to see the entire practice. In fact, we don't get to see any of practice. All we see is individual workouts post-practice. And what we can glean from that as far as skill development goes with what guys have been working on. So I don't think anything that I'm going to say has reflection from what I do have the privilege of seeing at practice, but Rasheer is getting closer and closer to that. They're giving him bits of minutes here and there just to gauge where he is in terms of how much of a load he can take on for the minutes-wise. I would say he's closer to returning to the rotation than he is away from having an opportunity.
Yeah. Look, any final thoughts on Royce before we go on to his trade talk running mate for the last year or so?
If you find the right opportunity, I think you have to do it when it comes to Royce. That's where I sit with it. That's why I was close to that 4 on my meter when it comes to Royce.
Would you just trade him for a pick?
No.
You'd have to get something back.
Like I don't think you're in the pick game. If you had wound up being as bad as people thought and you had vets sitting there, yeah, you're in the pick game. But now I don't think you can. I don't know that you're going to get the value, a good enough pick back to make your fan base accept the fact that you tanked part of your ability to compete this year as well.
Are we looking at targets?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could throw out a couple names. Bobby Portis, obviously, is a name. Steven, do you have anybody else?
Anybody else have names? By any chance?
Bobby was mine, but I go back to why is Milwaukee making that move? I don't think that answers enough of their questions. If it's Royce for Bobby Portis, I don't think that changes enough of their equation to do it.
I'm imagining the Suns could loop in as like a third team to connect for a bigger trade that might be happening with maybe some bigger names that a team either doesn't want to bring in or that they just can't afford. So kind of helping bridge that gap. So Karl-Anthony Towns is a name that continues to come up in conversations. The double big enthusiast, there you go. That's your opportunity. You also get the size and versatility in the front court. A big that can shoot, pass, and dribble, like I got done speaking to a little bit earlier. Talked about Bobby Portis, Obi Toppin is a name, Santi Aldama, Onyeka Okongwu,
Jalen Smith,
Najee Marshall, Sticks is a name as well. Jonathan Isaac, Sadiq Bey, Patrick Williams. Handful of names out there that you can get to at different price ranges as well. I seen Gershon Yabusele's name mixed in there as well. That's a name that I've been talking about since last season, it feels like. He definitely checks the box, not nearly as much as those other guys, but he does. PJ Washington is another name as well. So there are some options out there. We've heard Kuminga's out for the Suns as far as that goes, but that's another forward that is in the mix right now on the market. There's some names out there for you.
If it's Royce for Yabusele, that's a bad trade. I mean, and I'm team get Yabu here, but like for Nick Richards. And Knicks fans would cry if they got Royce O'Neale for Gershon Yabusele at this point. They literally want to give him away. But I do like Yabu as a fit as far as maybe what he could bring when Royce can't. And a lot of those names, Steven, I think also could be packaged in with our next guy as far as trade targets go. It's not a trade show if you don't pair Royce O'Neale with Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen, interesting stats for the Suns so far this year, averaging 16.3 points per game, 3.7 assists per game, 3 rebounds per game, just 29 games played, has missed a pretty good chunk of time, shooting 51.6% from 2, 36.3% from deep on a career high 8.9 attempts. That is 3 attempts more than his previous career high of 5.9, shooting 84% from the free throw line as far as his contract goes, including this season, 3 years, $54 million, that final year being a player option, so a heftier contract than Royce O'Neale. As far as our willingness to trade, averaged out a little bit under 3 stars, 2 3/4. When I bring up trading Grayson Allen, Gil, where's your brain immediately go?
My brain immediately goes to the amount of guards that are on this roster, because there are a lot, and a lot of them have been impactful. Grayson Allen has been one of the most impactful of that group, and it's why I landed basically right there, 2.5 Suns or stars as Suns. But with that, the question would be Jalen Green's health, because you're betting on him coming back, because it leaves a big void otherwise. Colin Gillespie sustaining and stepping up and being comfortable, consistently stepping up, which he has been. It's not to say that he has, but there's more pressure with that as well. Thinking about the standard contract you probably give to Jamari Bouye and Jordan Goodwin, kind of keeping that consistency a little more as well on the offensive end, because we know what he does blue collar wise, but it's a big void, the 16 points per game, the rim pressure, the threat that he is on the perimeter. So that's why I'm right in the middle, because again, you can persuade me either way, but the deal and the return would have to be worth parting with what Grayson is. And I don't think you bring in a better version of him. You assess a different need by bringing in a different type of player.
Yeah, Sean says it best, I think. Grayson is a key playmaker, so that's a hard pass for me. I think that's the biggest thing you lose. I understand that he's important offensively in terms of the three-point shooting, but what we've seen him be able to do as a secondary ball handler or an offensive initiator this year has been extremely important as well. I would not want to move on from Grayson because of that, unless you're looking at him and someone else that you're packaging to move for a larger player in terms of both actual size, but in terms of impact on the roster as well. I don't see how removing Grayson from this equation for somebody that's just as good, or to just slightly better really is going to impact things for the better.
Yeah, Grayson has been very important for the team. I was mentioning over the offseason how much of a role he would play and what it is they're trying to establish, because he's one of few guards that can coexist next to a Devin Booker or Jalen Green and still provide impact even if he doesn't touch the ball for multiple possessions. But when he does touch it, there's a certain gravity that is continuing to be underrated as far as how guys close out to him and his ability to counterpunch off of that. The rim pressure, to Gil's point, he can make layups. He's also one of your better lob passers. Look at the situations where he's throwing lobs. It's often off of a drive. And the threat of him either scoring at the basket or the threat of him using his different footworks to get to layups and creating contact. So that part is very, very important. The other part that's on the periphery is the small guard screening stuff that he does. He is by far the best on the Suns with it. He's elite in the entire league as far as that goes as well. The ghost screens, the screens to flip a matchup and allow for Devin or Jalen to potentially attack a lesser defenders that might be guarding him on any given situation. Short roll playmaking, we haven't seen that much this season, but in the 2 previous seasons with the Suns, I've highlighted that part of his game and him just being a plug and play piece. That's a value that you really can't even understand what it is to your team until you put someone else in that spot. And it's like, oh man, you can't do that. Like, that seems pretty easy. Like, it's not easy. And Grayson has all of these things on top of championship experience with that as well, that makes him the type of piece puzzle-wise that helps to make a team be more connective and be able to play more fast in the half court, which is what this Suns team needs.
I think there's one thing that I would consider that maybe would change the equation for me, is if they believe his knee that has hampered him this year. There was some knee injury management last year that he went through. If they feel that that's something that will continue, maybe that changes the equation slightly, where you're like, all right, they foresee something that 2-3 years down the line is going to be problematic. Then maybe I consider.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with everything that you guys said. Just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, we talk about selling high on Royce. We've seen a lot of Grayson this year because we have not seen Jalen Green as well. And I think Grayson could be more efficient in a smaller role with Jalen Green back. But as far as like, I know counting stats is not just the way to put it, everything that Steven said, but when you are pitching to an opposing GM, or an opposing GM is like, hey, who could we get? Talk about maybe a championship team is a Royce O'Neale away. Like, Grayson Allen's under contract, averaging 16 points per game. He's 3-point shooting percentage is lower than it has been at any point of his career, but he's taking almost 10 a game at this point, and he's hitting them at a high clip. And everything else that he brings is so impactful. Plus, when you look at Royce and you look at Grayson, Royce is at a position of need currently, what he plays at power forward. Now, what he brings isn't always what this team needs, but positionally he fits that. Grayson is in what I consider to be probably the deepest guard rotation in the NBA. Not the best at the top, even though we love Book and Green, but fully healthy. You've got Devin Booker, Jalen Green. You have Colin Gillespie, who you're going to need to give a contract to at the end of the season, by the way. He's not going to be making crazy money, but could he be making close to Grayson Allen-ish money? Yeah, he's somebody who you probably want to retain in your system. And then you've shown like, hey, we drafted Kobe Brea. Jamari Bouye is a good find on the margin. So was Jordan Goodwin. Obviously, none of these guys are Grayson Allen at all. But if you are able to flip him for, again, somebody who's a quote unquote better fit and keep the shooting of Colin and Royce, who are two borderline top 10 guys, and 3-point shooting in the league, and you add Jalen back, right? That's kind of the big thing here is you are going to bank on, okay, everything that Grayson's been doing, we can get some of that plus all this other stuff with Jalen Green that he hasn't been bringing. And we'll talk about Jalen here in a sec where it's like, oh, well, you only trade him for a big piece that fits. Obviously, a team would probably be willing to give up more for a guy like Jalen Green than Grayson Allen, but Grayson's the closest that you have besides him on the roster to that. So if you decide that right now you're going to bank on, hey, Jalen Green's coming back, he's going to fill a lot of that void and give you more things. Grayson's going to get me more value than Royce, and maybe there's the knee injuries, right? And he is under contract with a player option for about $17 million a year going forward. We got to pay Colin in the future. We got to pay Mark. That's shedding more salary than Royce if you don't bring back a huge one. So I could see reasons as to why they do it, but I agree that Grayson's been so good this year and he's helped stir the drink. Plus, we can't bank on Jalen Green being around at this point, that it's still a relatively hard no for me.
I do have a count stat for you, actually, which we usually don't do this, but with Grayson in the lineup, the team is 15-14. Without him, they're 12-5. And some of those games were against weaker opponents, but it does kind of show you that the world doesn't end if you part ways with Grayson Allen. And among those wins, Minnesota, Spurs, OKC, Lakers twice. So this team has beaten quality opponents, depending on where you stand on the Lakers, without Grayson Allen. And I don't think that means that he's not important to this team. But I think that it just shows that those guards are capable of stepping up and other guys are there. Obviously, Devin Booker made the big shot in the Thunder win and what have you. And again, there's the big what's going on question mark with Jalen Green. But that gives me a little piece in that, hey, if you're going to find a deal that's worthwhile for him, that should improve the team and it won't disrupt too much because, again, against some weaker opponents, this team has been okay without Grayson Allen this season.
I wonder, do you believe in Jalen's health, which we've talked about that, but then do you really believe that Colin, Jordan, and Jamare are as good as they've played, or have they played so far over their heads that maybe you can't trust them in the long run where you know that Grayson's a proven commodity?
Well, I mean, everything needs to be graded and looked at through the lens of who can help us get to being firmly above the 6th seed threshold, so making the playoffs outright, and then who's going to be able to add value for us based off of where we hope to be come playoff time once we get into a series. And I think that's where Grayson adds value for sure. Are there question marks? 100%. We saw a little bit in the short stint that he was available against Minnesota a few seasons ago. But we've also seen Grayson be a player that's added immense value this season alone. So that's the push and pull. If you're bringing someone in for Grayson, whether it's just a one-off trade or if he's in addition to someone else, that player coming in has to provide impact in a way that's almost found immediately upon landing here in Phoenix, because that's what Grayson's been doing since he got brought in.
There's a lot of risks with this. It's why being a general manager isn't easy. It's why a lot of the times there's a winner of a trade and there's a loser. It's very rare that you get a win-win trade. I think Grayson and Royce are two guys that we've talked about at wit's end when it comes to trades, and I think even they have changed their value internally over this season, and all of us would be fine if they didn't move them, would be fine if they didn't make any moves. There are two names, though, that might be creeping a little bit more into trade talks, and one of them is a big name. The other one is starting to lose rotation minutes. We're going to talk about Ryan Dunn and Jalen Green, and we're going to do it on the other side of this break. Maybe I'm the guy who should be doing this ad the least on this show, but that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying Bet365, even if I'm not winning on this show. I like to dabble in other sports, of course, other NBA games, the NFL playoffs, the NHL games, and of course, when MLB is back in season, I know where to go. It is always with Bet365. They offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. We love it. I love it because it tells you what these players have done over the last 5 games when you're trying to build a same game parlay. I just haven't been able to find that winning combination yet. But right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, so you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit 10, place a bet for 5, get $200 in bonus bet. If your bet wins or loses, bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus, physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT-STEP to 53342, or visit promgambling.az.gov.
Steven, you notice anything different about me?
Yes, glasses.
Oh, well, it's actually the beard. I woke up this morning, looked in the mirror, and remembered, oh yeah, I screwed up my beard yesterday, and I don't like myself all that much right now. I deserve a treat. So I stopped at Circle K on the way in, and I got my 3 Coke Zeros because, you know what I said, I need a little me time this morning. My friends at Circle K take care of just that. Not only do they do that, but they also have gas there, and I needed to fill up, and I remembered, oh yeah, I'm a member of the Inner Circle. That means I'm gonna save 5 cents off per gallon. That's not all though. When you sign up, you're gonna save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Then after that, you're gonna wind up in, I'm sorry, Gil, in the Gil level, because you're new here, so 3 cents off. Then you're gonna hit the Ayrton level, you're gonna save 5 cents off. It's just that easy when you become an Inner Circle member, plus great deals on food and so much more. So join the Inner Circle for free today by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply like everything in life. At participating locations, visit circlek.com for details.
Thanks, everybody, for talking trades with us here. Remember, it's all thought exercise. We like all of these players, and all of us would be fine if the Suns did nothing at the deadline. But with it just a week and a half away next Thursday, we have to get into it. We will be doing a live show leading up to the deadline 1 hour before we'll go live to react to all the trades made in the NBA and maybe Suns trades as well, even though there is a game that night. So make sure you mark that down on your calendars. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Help us get to 50,000 before the Super Bowl, less than 800 away. This is a conversation that Gil, Espo, and I dove a little bit into last night, just talking about Ryan Dunn and where he stands in this rotation after once again getting a low minutes output. Now, for the season, Ryan Dunn's averaging 6.4 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 1.6 assists per game, 39 games played so far, which is pretty good, only missing 7 games, shooting 55.6% from 2, 31.3% from deep, 69.2% from the free throw line, which is up from last year. He's, by the way, he's the second guy we've talked about today that's shooting 69% from the free throw line.
Royce also, right?
Royce, yeah. Ryan's currently on a 3-year, $10 million contract, so he's currently guaranteed this year. His club option or his team option was picked up for next year, and then there's another team option the year after that, which I think is pretty unique for a first-round pick. So the team does have control on whether or not they're going to extend him, and then he's a restricted free agent after that. So there's a ton of control from a team perspective on Ryan Dunn's contract, and it's still on the lower end. Steven, I just want to kind of get your thoughts about where we stand with Ryan Dunn as just a current part of the Phoenix Suns rotation.
Yeah, he's on the outs right now. I think that's clear, evident by the minutes and the way that his minutes have dropped off over the last maybe 2.5 to 3 weeks or so. I think it's partly because of the offense, but I also feel like his defense hasn't been as impactful in a sustained manner as we know for his ceiling to be, at least what he's shown for it to be. in alignment with what he could be going forward. So I
Hey,
think it's just
Sad
leaving a
alignment.
little bit to be desired on the defensive end and tandem with the shortcomings on offense. That's becoming a little bit too much for them. Now that's something that could change potentially tomorrow against Brooklyn. He comes out, he's a game buster defensively in the first 5 or 6 minutes that he's allowed to play. That earns him a second stint, and all of a sudden he's back in the rotation, especially with Jalen being day to day and Devin being out for the next week at least. So it's something that could change, but I think he's left a little bit to be desired recently, and that's largely been why they've given those minutes elsewhere, even if it does mean them downsizing.
I I am all right with them moving Ryan Dunn if there's a big if it's part of a package with somebody else to get somebody in that will definitively impact your ability to win this year and over the next year or two. Ryan Dunn would act as that first round pick that you don't have to trade, and you'd have to find a partner that looked at him that way. And you've got Rasheer, who I think could take what little minutes that Ryan's getting and make more of it. We've seen what Livers has been able to do with minutes. I would feel all right if you're using him as that youth, that draft pick to get something bigger if you're trading one of these other guys we've talked about.
That's the conversation that we were having last night, especially what you were talking about, Steven, with the defense. Is just like there have been so many times this year where we were like, oh man, he's really bought into this. Like I mentioned the example when he picked Shea up right after making a 3-pointer. And it's those small moments that we've talked about hanging on to that as time has gone on lately, they've been fewer and further in between. And it's just like, what's going on? And I have no idea what's happening in practice. I have no idea like the messaging that's happening to him in the locker room, but it feels like there's a level of confidence that isn't necessarily there. I know a lot has been thrown his way, but to your point, Espo, thinking about maybe it just isn't going to work. And I think that if you kind of accept that, then it's time to just cut your losses. Basically saying like it's maybe another team bets on molding him into what they want him to be, and you can get an older version of him that fits what you have and that's ready to go and ready to play, even if he's just 3 or 4 years older than Ryan. I guess the one thing that gives you pause though is you'd hate to give up too early. He goes somewhere else and becomes, a perennial all defensive player or something like that, which he has the potential to be. So I just wonder how soon is too soon to give up on a second-year player.
Yeah, if we were talking about Oso Ighodaro 2 weeks into the season, right? Like if we were doing this for some reason, then he would be included in this and Ryan Dunn wouldn't, right? And I don't say that to say that there's no reason to look into it with Ryan. And obviously everybody knows, how big of a fan I am of him as a player and his potential. But also if he's not playing, then he's not bringing you an impact, right? And if other teams view him as a potential first round pick because you don't have those things, that might be what it takes to get over the edge. Now, I will say there is a big, big risk to take a swing and trade either Ryan Dunn or Oso. I do believe that they are in similar conversations, even though Oso's playing much better right now and is a much bigger part to this team. But because of the fact that they are integral to this culture, internal development, and Ryan is a guy who, as of right now, is relatively low risk on your roster. He's not making a lot of money. You have all the control when it comes to the next 2 years and restricted free agency after that. And because of his tools, we know how hard he works. We know that he has a great relationship with all the guys as well. It would be a tough sell, I think, to a lot of players in that locker room. And I think also to fans to say, hey, we traded this guy if it's not for something that's so definitive. But my problem is, if he's a sweetener, okay, but how many teams, honestly, with what Ryan has been doing this year, are going to look at him like a first-round pick? He was barely a first-round pick when he got drafted, and he has not been consistent in what he was supposed to be one of the best prospects at, and that's defense, let alone the whole offensive side of the ball as well. I'd say his best skill has been rebounding. I think he's been great at it. You don't just get first-round picks that are that size, that's best skill or rebounding. So I don't know what his value is to everybody else, and I don't know if that's worth the risk of moving him.
It only takes one GM to look at him and go, you know what? I can turn him into X, Y, and Z where others can't. And look, you're not dealing him. You're not Nick Richardsing him. You're not just dealing him
He doesn't
to
make
get rid of him. That makes no sense. I think this is, am I getting packaging him with somebody else to get a younger, or not a younger, but a young guy that can have impact now on our playoff chase and impact the next few years. If you're not, if you're trading him for some guy that's over the hill that might just help this year, yeah, hell to pay in that kind of a situation. But if it's the right guy, nobody's gonna give a damn that you traded Ryan Dunn to get the right guy to help you win. All right, that nobody's gonna care.
It's tough to throw arbitrary rules or numbers out there, but I do think it's important to what you're saying. He's 23 years old. Don't trade him for anybody older than 28. I think that if that's the case, like you can't get significantly older or trade him for a guy that you're only going to get 1.5 or 2 good years from. That's very short-sighted. And just what we were talking about with Royce, right? And maybe this team becomes like very strategic sellers and they're answering things here and there, and that's what they do. But we talked about Royce. That would be a deal that sets you up down the line. Well, it would counteract that if you trade Ryan, somebody who you can maybe potentially still mold. Maybe he does need another summer. I guess that's the big question with him and where he is in his development. Do you think it's too far gone, or do you think that one more stint at summer league could work for him, or maybe the switch just flips at some point this season? So I think that's what it is. Where if you're going to part ways with him, get somebody on the same developmental timeline as the younger guys on your team still.
And that's what I was gonna get to, because back in my mind has been, okay, you draft Rasheer Fleming one season after you drafted Ryan Dunn. You can't compare the two because Rasheer hasn't played even close to the minutes total that Ryan played even last season. So you can't make a straight one-for-one comparison. But what you can look at is in terms of development is where they were when they came into your program and where they are now. Obviously, Rasheer hasn't carved out a consistent niche in the rotation, but it feels like people are more bullish on what his potential is and the impact he can provide to the team. Um, Maybe as soon as this season, and what that might look like in comparison to what's been happening with Ryan recently. Now obviously there's some recency bias with what you've seen from Ryan versus what you hope to see from Rasheer down the line. But I feel like there's a little bit of mental gymnastics on that side just off of the conversations that I've been seeing. And I'm not saying people are wrong for having those thoughts and conversations, but I do say you still need to give a little bit of patience to Ryan, even though this is a sophomore year. The sophomore slump is something for a reason. Still a guy that's finding his way. I think the positive side is you can look at him as someone that's going to have impact defensively, even if it's not up to his standard that he's shown to have had recently.
Yeah, this is a tough conversation to have. I think also for Suns fans, because, and there's some mentions of it in the chat, like this has been this front office's identity for the last 10 plus years, is giving up on a guy too early, right? You trade Toumani Camara. Obviously, Toumani Camara becomes a mainstay up in Portland. People wish that you could have him back. Even looking at a guy like Ty Jerome, who goes from outcast on this roster to integral part of a really great team last year in Cleveland. You don't want to give up on a guy that you have in-house. It's not like this guy was picked number 5, right? And he still could improve. Plus, him and Rasheer, they could share the floor together. That being said, Isaiah Livers is stealing his minutes right now. He stole his minutes last night. He's also stealing Rasheer Fleming's minutes. And I guess I use the word steal as in like he's earned them. He hasn't stolen them. Ryan's been given this opportunity, and slowly this season that opportunity has been peeled back. I'm not a fan of moving him, but he absolutely has to play better. Because if he doesn't, then there are other guys in the wings here who can bring what he brings. Because if he's not doing it at a high level like we expect him to, then what's the point of keeping him around if other guys can do that for less value or for less money or with a 3-point shot or with some self-creation? And so it's a tough conversation to have. He averages out to 3.5 stars here. That's the second highest guy that we have as far as being willing to trade. And I think at the beginning of the season, he would be very, very low. So he's got a lot of work to do, I think, to get back to that point that we were viewing him as, or at least that I was viewing him as in the offseason. Any final thoughts on Dunn before we get Green?
Hey, get patient, man. Just be patient. If they move him, it's going to be for something that makes sense for them projecting going forward. But also, that's a guy that you definitely don't want to be in a position of, man, we just had him, and now all of a sudden he's hitting with a different team. You finally have a situation conducive to skill development and for guys to play to the best version of themselves. We've seen that with pretty much everybody in the rotation so far this season. I imagine if and when Ryan's development starts to hit, where you can see the return on the investment in his play and in his confidence, that's when you'll see him kind of carve that niche back out in the rotation. That takes a little bit of time, though.
Yeah. Talk about not being patient. If the Suns trade this next guy, it would be probably the least patient thing that they could do. That's Jalen Green. A lot of conversations this offseason were had about potentially moving Jalen Green before he even plays in a Suns uniform. What would that mean? Would the Suns use this as a rehabilitation year for Jalen Green? Well, obviously, that hasn't really happened so far because he hasn't been on the court. His counting stats are what they are. Take them with a grain of salt. 11.8 points per game, 2 assists per game, 1.8 rebounds per game, in 4 games, really 2 games. If we're being completely honest, considering he was pulled out of 2 other ones for, of course, that hamstring injury, shooting 44.4% from 2, 42.1% from deep, 77.8% from the free throw line. The contract, it's a big one. 3 years, including this year, for $106 million, a player option in that 3rd year. Our willingness to trade is 2 and like an 8th Suns. To me, this is such an interesting conversation to have because this team has been very good this season without Jalen Green for a vast majority of it. If you do move him, it would have to be for somebody who is the highest caliber of return that we've talked about today, or of anybody else on the Suns roster not named Devin Booker.
Potential. It has to be a starter with all-star potential. Jalen
all-star
Green's-
resume.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Green's 23, and you'd be selling him at the lowest that you could possibly sell a player right now. I think they'd be crazy to do this unless the perfect deal fell in their laps right now, because also I know we're all very high on this team and what they're doing. I also remember the 48-win 2013-14 Suns that wound up never getting back to that again. It was magic. It was kind of a magical season that was gone in a flash. You've got to be thinking long-term as well, and I think trading Jalen Green would be insane if you even considered it.
Yeah, I wrote down all-star caliber guy, but on the other hand, it feels like bad business in some senses. Like, you make this guy feel wanted, and like he was counted out the place that drafted him 2nd overall, and not necessarily in a sense of burning bridges, but that does kind of send a bad message moving forward. Just type of franchise you are. Like, I think we saw it happen in years back where people kind of were hesitant to go to Boston because of the way that they just kind of moved players or held on to players, or the way that they did business. And I don't necessarily think it's the same situation here if you just give up on Jalen Green and you're just kind of acknowledging that it wasn't going to work, or you think it's not going to work. But it's really hard to acknowledge that based off of 2 games and 2 parts of 2 games. So I would think it would be short-sighted. I'm kind of surprised it was even above 2 stars. I had 1 as far as my willingness to do it. But I think it's, again, if it's that right move, and last week you floated out the Jaren Jackson Jr. proposal. I don't see it being that, or that happening, at least right now, but a lot can change in 10 days. And if that happens, you got to think long and hard, and I would probably lean yes if it were that specific deal.
Yeah, for me, it's if you're trading Jalen, mind you, he's the lowest of the 4 guys that I've been on the not trade side of trade or not trade. If you're trading him, you have to get somebody that is, upon arrival, going to boost your team's ceiling and floor. So if the ceiling has been what they are now, which is the 6th seed in the West, they can't be someone that's going to have you take even a half step back. They got to keep you where you're at or boost you forward, if not just make you more viable in playoff contention once you get to actual series. So that's a certain crop of guys that we're talking about as far as who's in that hemisphere of players that's on the market right now. I don't think trading Jalen is the move, but I also don't have a crystal ball that can say I know who's available for sure. So I'll just err on, if they're doing it, it's going to be somebody that's in the starting lineup firmly. It's going to give them a bit of that rim pressure, a bit of that dribble, catch, shoot dynamic, a bit of that versatility in the front court that we're speaking about. Someone that they're comfortable closing games with, someone that helps them answer questions against switches as teams continue to throw that against them, whether Devin's in the lineup or not. Somebody that's going to add to what it is they've shown to have success with, but take them another step in the direction that they're trying to get to.
Somebody that Devin Booker likes. and that he's on board with
Mhm.
because he clearly likes Jalen Green. Not to play body language doctor, but he's a big fan of having that guy around and was really happy when he came back. Now, there are names that could technically fit that. Jaren Jackson Jr., Bam Adebayo, if you want to get crazy. We all know that's probably not going to happen. Lauri Markkanen, Karl Anthony Towns, and on the lower end, Onyeka Okongwu. You know, there are names here that make a logical fit from a roster perspective. The Suns, even without Jalen Green, we talked about it with Grayson Allen, have a plethora of guards. Colin Gillespie's emergence really helps out with that as well. And again, this is a team that was in the playoffs, obviously in January, but in the playoffs before Jalen Green had played over 35 minutes on the season. If you are trading him, which I want it on the record, I am against. If you are doing that, you're basically banking on, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. And we don't know that if he isn't healthy, that his value won't get lower, right? Or maybe we're worried about medicals, or we find a team like Memphis that's desperate to move on from their current era of basketball. They want to take a shot on this guy who hasn't played, which is a bad thing in some senses, and maybe a good thing because you could still sell on the promise of Jalen Green. I would be so hesitant to do this, but I would understand that if he got traded, it would be for a higher end player. But also, what team's going to want him in the middle of playing basically 2 games for the season with a hamstring injury for one of the most athletic young guards in the league? Like, that's a pretty tough combination.
Desperate team that wants to stack talent but wants to tank in the meantime.
Yeah.
Sounds like a team that our neighboring state.
I think Andy gets it in the chat. If you were to pair Jaren Jackson Jr. with Mark Williams, not only what that does for that pairing, but what that does for the rest of your front court, that changes a lot for your trajectory going forward. It makes you more playoff ready, gives you the size, gives you somebody that can move Devin off the ball at times. You can play point forward with Jaren. You can obviously have your small ball 5. You literally bring in a defensive player to your candidate. Someone that's won it already and someone that's consistently in that conversation. I know rebounds, but guess where he provides impact elsewhere? He gives you a floor space and big. Y'all that talk about rebounds also talk about wanting the floor space and big. Tripp has been that guy for the last 3 seasons now. He has a lot more to his game than what people typically choose to talk about. And I think that impact upon arrival will be something that changes what the Suns' perception is to the rest of the league. Obviously, people will take into account what they can be with Jalen. They look at it a little differently if it's coming with, oh, they got somebody that they can plug and play at the 5. They can play him at the 5 against OKC, and they're not going to just small switch him off the court because he's going to have impact. But you also can't do a lot of other things that teams are doing to the other front court pieces on the Suns right now. It's a different type of animal there.
I was going to say, you also picked the right outfit to talk well about Jaren Jackson Jr. today.
The bias is not there, I would say. The bias is not there.
No, but in all
But for
seriousness,
obvious reasons, that would
work.
pique the
It's
interest
just
of many in the Suns.
that's real alignment. But no, I was getting ready to say, I think the big thing with that too, we said that so much about this team and also like this league, right? A kind of a copycat league, so to speak. You mentioned Oklahoma City. We saw what they did in the finals and the method that they found success. Not so much this year in Cleveland, but they won, 67 games last year, 64 games last year with who at the helm? Jordan, well, not at the helm, but Jordan Ott was a big part of that. So he knows how to operate within that type of circumstance and situation with those 2 guys. So that's a great comparison as well. So, you know, it could work. I think it brings you closer. I think it raises your ceiling. I also think it raises your floor. So move the other part. I know we saw Markkanen and his name in there a lot. That would be one of those things where the Jazz are betting on Jalen Green kind of being their future guy with him being younger. Bringing Lowry back to the state of Arizona would be something interesting as well. But I just don't know as far as like what he brings on both ends of the floor. He's a really good player, averaging 28 points per game and also making more money. So it makes it a little more difficult with who else you throw in there. But he's at least an intriguing name that you would have to think about before you probably say no.
Yeah, if you see the Celtics are interested in a guy that's on the market, you definitely should be 100% interested at almost, and I say almost, any cost. But I'm imagining the Suns are able to attain some of these talents. Even if Jalen Green is potentially involved in a deal that makes up in like a 3 or 4 team type of construct.
Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neale, come on, Mala Watch works for Jaren Jackson Jr.
I mean, remember over the summer, I was all in on the Suns finding a way to go and get Tripp.
I mean,
should they have traded Kevin Durant, which they did.
That being
Did
said,
get
though,
JJ in return though.
Spike is right, says even discussing trading Jalen Green is too cold to comprehend. You don't give up on a good man when he is suffering. You build him up. He could do great things with the Suns.
That's the other part. The great thing with the Suns part is for every bit of the culture established with Dillon Brooks and Devin buying into Jordan's impact and all of those things. We just got done talking about 2 weeks ago how revered Jalen seems to be now with the Suns for how involved he was while he was injured, to the extent that when he comes back, it's like, oh yeah, this dude can play basketball too, because his leadership in terms of helping bring joy, break up the mundaneness of 82 games, it's been resounding in terms of the culture shift that we've seen them work to establish as a foundation. So that stuff matters too, for sure.
Well, and everybody that's saying, oh, you can't trade Dunn because what if he becomes that next? Jalen Green's 23 along with Ryan Dunn.
Same age.
You want to talk about giving up on a guy potentially too early and watching him
Yeah.
blossom into something. Jalen Green has that written all over him. So if you're not getting the top of the top, no, sorry not to steal your morning tweet, but if you're not getting that, you're failing potentially in a massive way.
Yep. And to your point, if you're holding out on potential of Ryan Dunn, there's potential with Jalen, but you've also seen some actualization of what he can be.
Yeah.
He's averaged 20 in a season. He's been the number 2 1B option on a team that's went to the playoffs as recent as last season. Like
51 team.
Yeah, there's a lot there with Jalen, even in his abbreviated career. That's much more to glean from if you're on that side of erring on potential hitting for the Suns with someone like Ryan Dunn.
I think it's much harder, I agree, to kind of stomach Ryan moving on and becoming a player. You kind of just charge that to the game, because I'm sure the Nuggets are thinking the same thing about Colin Gillespie, and plenty of teams are thinking the same thing about Jordan Goodwin, and honestly, people who wrote off Dillon Brooks. That happens, right? You benefit from it. You also don't. But I think with Jalen Green, there is real potential for him to be an all-NBA level player at 23 years old. If you believe you can tap into that potential and mold him and allow him to reach another level of stardom in the league, you just gotta wait it out and figure it all out.
The comment at the bottom from Quinn Ayers says he's also ball dominant, though I don't like how that pairs with Book long term. That's the last part I wanted to bring up. Espo, we talked about it a couple of days ago. Devin being the most malleable superstar in the league, can play in multiple systems. The leeway that gives a coach to play a system that is conducive to his strengths as well as Devin's strengths, as well as the team's strengths around Devin. That matters a lot. I think you being able to build a roster around plugging and playing guys and knowing that Devin can thrive off the ball, on the ball, or anywhere in between that helps a lot. So that's a chess piece that most other teams don't have. You can't bring in another ball dominant guy with Jalen Brunson, just an example, and expect to see your team still operate and him be the best version of himself. There's only a couple of superstars you can say that about, and the Suns have one that's shown to be as loyal to the franchise as any other star has been in the franchise's history.
Is the risk worth the reward? We will talk about it.
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Is the juice worth the squeeze? I don't have any other analogy, but I kind of wish that I did. We're going to keep on talking about trades as we get closer to next Thursday's trade deadline. A reminder for everybody who's new in here, we're live pregame, postgame shows for every single game. Plus, even on game day next Thursday, which for some reason the Suns play on the trade deadline day, we'll be doing a show at noon, starting at noon, leading up until the 1 p.m. local time trade deadline, reacting to all the biggest trades in the NBA. And of course, if the Suns make any deals. Plus, between now and then, if the Suns make any trades, we will also be going live for a breaking news podcast, the #1 place to get all of your Suns news, information, reactions, breakdowns, and everything is right here on PHNX Sports. So you should hit that like button while you're here.
Tell you what, if the Suns happen to find a way to get Jaren Jackson Jr., you'll see me turn into a fan for 3 minutes.
A whole 3?
Just 3 minutes.
Oh,
I'll have the timer. I'll be on the
oh
timer.
my God, I've never
Would that,
wanted
would
something
that
to
be your
happen
MSU
before.
sneaking out? Would that just be your basketball love?
Well, it's kind of both.
Okay.
That dude is awesome, and he would have to come here and do a podcast too. I will make sure of that. Yeah.
Ryan Gregory, that
Sure.
juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
3 minutes of him as a fan.
To
Good.
take him from his beloved Chicago Bulls fandom and turn him into a Suns fan would just be...
You know all the buttons
Be
to
all-
press. It just
Do you want me to
Just keep
trade him to
lying.
Chicago?
He just keeps lying.
You like the
Lying?
weather?
Lying.
I'm pretty sure we showed a picture on this very program of you in Chicago Bulls merchandise when you were a kid.
Yeah, because I had choice in what I was wearing as a child.
There's photos of me in Yankees gear when I was a kid.
Ooh.
Doesn't make me a Yankees fan.
It's fair. I'm just saying.
Doesn't count.
Steven loves Karnisovis over there at the Chicago Bulls.
He don't
Thinks
even-
he's building
he
a winner.
doesn't even like his job.
All right. Well, Steven and I will talk about that off air. But in the meantime,
because there's nothing to talk about.
you can hit that subscribe button as well. 50,000 subscribers on the way. Help be a part of that. It's free. Even if you don't use YouTube, you're listening on audio, jump on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and then close the app forever. Still helps us out. And of course, you can follow the show at PHNX_Suns for breaking news updates on the injury reports when we have more information on that. Of course, Rising Stars revealed tonight, maybe a Suns player involved in that. We'll let you know. All-star reserves, plus film breakdowns from Steven, the power rankings tracker from Gil. All of that you can find at PHNX_Suns. That's on Twitter and on Instagram as well. Big shout out to the Freckled Mamba behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen, all the great graphics today. Of course, you can follow him at Freckled Mamba. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3. That's Steven with a PH. You can follow Espo at Espo. Catch him on Southwest Bias every morning. You can follow Gil at Gil McGregor_. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. And remember, every single trade cycle, we always want to trade your favorite players, and we don't care how mean it is.
We all silly like the mayor.